2025. Good morning, New York. Good morning, New York. We are 1 month into 2025, and I gotta ask, to anyone who had a resolution, how is it going? Lance Davidson hears from the cheery radio host before rolling over out of his sleep and checking his phone. 9:30. He reads before switching his phone to his music playlist. Automatically Alone by Marshmallow begins to play on his phone, and Lance gathers the strength to get out of bed. He looks outside the window from his bedroom and has a view of the city. Lance smiles to himself and turns away from the window and heads toward his kitchen and makes himself some breakfast. Lance grabs 2 pieces of bread from the loaf he had just bought the day before and dropped them into the toaster. He waits until he hears the ding sound, which indicates that the toast is ready, and pulls the 2 pieces out, laying them gently on a small plate. Lance takes his toast and heads to the table. As Lance sits and takes bites of his toast, he hears his music interrupted by his ringtone. He puts the toast that he's about to take a bite of down and runs to answer his phone. "Hey, Kate," Lance says in a raspier tone than intended. "Hey, Lance," Kate answers back loudly and cheerfully. "We're still meeting up for pizza later, right?" Kate asks Lance. Lance smiles to himself. "Yep, 12:30, right?" Lance asks. "Yes, same place we went last time," Kate replies. After a few more words, the two hang up, and Lance realizes that he has 2 hours to kill, and he decides to pass the time in the best way he knows, but not before cleaning himself up. After getting cleaned up, Lance marches to his closet and pulls it open. The first thing he sees being the torso piece of his blue and gold armored Arachnid suit that he had made months before. He picks it up and puts it over himself, and within seconds, the armored suit covers him. He pulls the hooded scarf over his head and bends down under his bed, pulling out a gray case. He opens the case and reveals 2 blue and gold colored stun guns. He pulls them out of the case and puts them on the tactical holsters on his legs before standing up again and looking out his window, smiling. Pizza time. Lance begins to run and leaps off his roof. As he's free-falling, he sees a police car speeding down the street, narrowly missing pedestrians and other vehicles. He laughs to himself. "Let's see if I can do this before Spider-Man does." Lance's web sabers suddenly come out of the suit's back, and they catch him to break his fall before detaching. Lance shoots the web out of his right hand and throws his right leg forward, going into a backflip, and while coming out of the flip, he uses both web shooters to web zip to the roof of the police car and lands on top of it. After a few more minutes of driving, the police car stops at a train yard. Lance looks around and sees other cop cars with officers standing beside them. The officers in the car Lance's on get out, and Lance hops off the roof. "Great to see you, armored Arachnid," says one of the police officers that look to be middle-aged. Lance nods and asks what the situation is. The officer explains to him that there was a report of an escaped criminal who had stowed away on a train when it left Toronto. Lance nods and looks toward the police captain, who gives the signal to start the search. The middle-aged officer brings Lance and 3 other officers with them as they check the box cars on one of the trains. Lance keeps the stun gun ready, not knowing what might happen. Lance remembers visiting the train yard years ago. His father had taken him there to explain to him how trains worked. Lance thinks to himself and chuckles, realizing how insanely different these circumstances are. When suddenly he hears an officer yell that they found him. Lance's nerves suddenly skyrocket, and he runs with the other officers to the train car that the criminal is on. He gets into the train car and aims his stun gun forward and moves forward with the officer standing behind him. Lance hopes that it's not who he thinks it is. Lance gets to the back of the car and sees a criminal wearing a black hoodie with black jeans and boots. Lance grabs the criminal's arm and turns him over to look at him. He pulls back in surprise. "It's you?" Lance yells. The police officers look in confusion. The criminal is Connor, the powder drum bounty hunter. Lance's eyes dart back and forth as if he's confused on what to do now. "You know this guy?" one of the officers asks. Lance nods and explains that when he was tracking Powder Drum out of New York 7 months before, Connor showed up and gave Lance and his team a lead. Lance tells the police that they should ask him some questions before completely arresting him, and that maybe there could be something bigger going on that they don't know about. Minutes later, the officers, Connor and Lance, return to the patrol cars. Connor is put in one, and Lance is told that they'll interrogate him at the main precinct. Lance nods to this and prepares to swing away before being stopped by the captain. "Hey, by the way, the chief has talked a lot about attempting to temporarily deputize you. Sounds pretty crazy, but if you're on board with the idea, then come down to the precinct," the captain says. Lance tilts his head in thought, and although only being able to see the armored Arachnid's mask, the captain can tell he's thinking about it. And the captain smiles and gets back into his car, and Lance watches him drive off. Lance retracts his mask and looks over at nothing in particular. "Pizza time," he says to himself. Lance drives up to the pizza restaurant and parks on the street. Before getting out, he puts on the gloves that Bucky got him for Christmas. He gets out of the car and walks into the restaurant and sees Kate ordering pizza. Lance walks up and gets her attention. "Oh, hey, Lance," Kate says cheerfully. Lance smiles warmly and says hey to her and grabs a pizza from the cashier. The two start to walk over to a booth, but not before Lance suddenly stops and asks Kate if she's ever eaten pizza on a rooftop. Kate shakes her head and Lance smiles. The two walk onto the roof and stop at the edge, and Lance puts the pizza between them before opening up the box and taking a slice out. Kate grabs one as well, and before biting a piece, she looks back at Lance. "Lance?" Kate asks. "Yeah, Kate?" Lance replies. "Do you know the other Spider-Man?" Kate asks while turning her head. "No, I don't." I'm surprised before taking a bite of the pizza slice. Lance had worked with Spider-Man quite a few times, but never got to know who's under the mask. "I know that before the blip happened, he was probably around my age," Lance adds. "So after working together to save the world all these times, you guys haven't become close at all?" Kate asks confusedly. Lance shrugs before taking another bite off the slice. "I know he's got a good fashion sense," Lance says. After an hour, the two finish their pizza and part ways. Lance walks out of the pizza restaurant and unlocks his car, getting inside and revving his engine when he suddenly hears his ringtone and grabs his phone without a second thought. "Hey, Lance," that's his sister, Anna says in a somewhat flat tone. "Hey, sis, what's up?" Lance says, sounding slightly more energetic. Anna sits up in her bed as she tells Lance that their mother would like him to come home for dinner the next night before telling him that she shared a post with him on social media. Lance takes his phone from his ear and puts it on a speaker. He clicks the link and it sends him to a post. "At the Arachnid, New York. I didn't know I had a fan page," Lance says to Anna. "Get over yourself and look at the post, Lance," Anna says, rolling her eyes. Lance laughs to himself and reads the post caption. "I need to be honest. The Arachnid colors aren't it. The blue and gold makes it seem like he's been spending too much time with Thor." The post says with a slightly blurry picture of Lance pushing on the side of the building. "What? I've been the Arachnid for 5 months, and they say this now." Lance says in an annoyed tone as he puts his phone on his dash and pulls up the parking space and starts driving down the street, saying that he will go color shopping.